navigating today's supply chain challenges. Joining us today to speak about that very important topic is Fermin Caro, Managing Director of COMCAP. Fermin, it's great to see you once again. Welcome.
Thank you, Russell.
Let's, if we could, Fermin, let's kind of set the stage, and detail some of the challenges that operators are running into, or if they haven't already, they're certainly going to be having to address. And let's then talk about how they can take care of those things, deal with those hurdles. What do you say?
Yeah, well, a couple of the things that come to mind here are some of the risks that operators need to manage, as well as the bottom line, continuing their earnings growth. So when we think about the risks, we think about uncertainties, navigating cyber risk, trade route disruption, some of the demand, labor, and supply chain shocks that they've been dealing with for multiple years. That's become a new normal. On the earnings growth side of things, 2020 to 22, we saw a boom in demand. A lot of companies benefited from that. 23 was a little more muted. We saw some declines there. And much of the earnings growth came from cost-cutting initiatives, margin expansion initiatives. Most of those, I think, have been identified and are in execution mode. Going forward, I think for 24, we're seeing some resumption of traditional lower single-digit type of growth. Really, the only way that you can generate continued growth on the earnings front is going to be maybe a little bit of margin expansion, but market share. And I think diversification, value-added services are going to be part of those equations.
Well, it's interesting. You talked about how a number of these challenges have been dealt with. Cost-cutting measures have been implemented, et cetera, et cetera. And so many people who are watching the video may say, I think I've done pretty much all I can do to be prepared for any uncertainty that's coming down the pike. And if they were to say that to you, what would you say to them?
I would say there are so many uncertainties that we just can't quantify. Geopolitical, the cyber risk are real. We're seeing much more of that. The cost and labor shortages, cost increases. The inflation is generally a lagging trend in the supply chain. So as we see countries manage their own inflationary pressures, some of those costs are interrelated throughout the supply chain, and we're expecting to see costs increasing across the logistics industry.
Okay, so we've detailed then, or we've given a laundry list of the challenges that are out there. Let's talk about navigation. Let's talk about dealing with those problems, addressing those problems. What are you telling folks who talk to you and say, I need some help? What are you telling them?
Yeah. Well, we're continuing to see acquisitive indicators from logistics and retailers. We see, frankly, if you are on the roadmap, there's a conversation to be had. I think gone are the days, at least for the next couple of years, of going into adjacent markets and telling a thesis around how there could be new synergies to drive growth. Let's stick to the core. Let's figure out how we can accelerate our roadmap. There are a ton of companies out there that have been well-funded. A lot of great tech is out there. Not all of them have found sustainable business models. So I think that you can accelerate some of those roadmaps and get some technical benefit, get some efficiencies, get some diversification to win market share.
Here's a landscape I think a number of people are interested in. They want to have some kind of information on, and I think you're ideally placed to talk about that. M&A. Mergers and acquisitions, what's going on there, and give us your view.
Yeah, we saw roughly about a 40% decrease in volume in 23 from the 22 period. Now granted, 21, 22 were pretty high-flying years in terms of volume of funding and M&A. The various surveys of CTO business unit owners that we track are giving us indicators that roughly about 40% of logistics and retailers are looking to do M&A. What we can expect is those cycles are going to be a little lengthier. There's a lot more scrutiny around how tangible those synergies could be, how well those integrations will be executed, and that is why we believe you need to be on that roadmap. You need to have endorsement and advocacy from the business units.
Here's a question that just popped into my mind, because we're talking about something that is extraordinarily important for folks who are involved in this space. It occurs to me there must be something we haven't talked about, an area that you feel is crucial to share with people. Any thoughts that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that there's some optimism here in this sector. Frankly, when we look at the broad landscape of technology innovation, the funding mechanisms that exist from late stage to mid stage to private equity, we are continuing to see a strong emphasis and canvassing of these groups going after technology startups and some mature companies looking to make investments into, looking to roll up, create scale. They know there's consolidation that needs to happen. They're trying to pick up the different assets, and we see a robust interest from the private equity and growth investors. We think that that's going to drive some competition and maybe shorten some cycles on the M&A front with strategics, but we do expect that consolidation will happen through these two levers.
Mm-hmm. Final question for me, and I think this is an important one. I know you're the managing director of CommCap, but a number of people may not be entirely familiar with the organization. So for the benefit of that viewer, tell us a little something about the focus of CommCap. What do you say?
CommCap is a boutique investment bank. We have global reach. There's 30 bankers. We specialize exclusively around vertical software and commerce enablement. That means we deal with marketplaces, e-com, supply chain, logistics, payments. Our focus areas are generally Series B or later, meaning they're doing roughly 10 million in revenue on the early stage to a couple $100 million. We do capital raises and M&A advisory as well as joint ventures. We deal with a lot of strategics because of our sector focus.
Extraordinarily important information there, important sector, no doubt about it. And for me, you found time to speak with us and to share this information today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Fermin Caro, CommCap, speaking with us today about supply chain finance, a very important area to your enterprise. Thanks for watching.